So in case you were unaware, today, October 28th, we got 5 new KDA-inspired spells added to Legends of Runeterra that you can get through the event pass that are here to stay permanently. Don't worry if you missed the event, they will be available to purchase through currency, in-game currency. I don't mean like you have to pay real money for them, I mean like you can spend shards on them after the event ends on, I believe, November 25th. Now, there's been a lot of mixed reviews by people on, how this fares for the game, on just adding cards for specific events, how this deals with the canon and the lore and things like that, but I'm here to answer the only question that matters: are they tournament viable? Before I get into reviewing the card, something that I did want to make you aware of, because this popped up kind of last minute and it was very easy to miss. So this article just came out 2 hours ago, but tomorrow, October 29th, probably the day that you're watching this video since it's coming out so late, there's going to be a Twitch Rivals at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that is a combination of Legends of Runeterra and League of Legends, where they're going to have a couple of teams with 5 League players and 2 LOR players. They're going to play a little bit of LOR that's going to give them an advantage in League games, then they're going to play a little bit more LOR and then round it all out with a League game. Now you might be wondering, did your favorite streamer get invited? Probably. Your favorite streamer is Mogwai or Swim, based on every Twitch comment that I've ever gotten in every tournament cast that I've ever done. Yes, Swim's going to be fucking playing in this Twitch Rivals. God damn, it's a Twitch Rivals. Why the fuck wouldn't he be playing? Is Mogwai playing? I don't fucking know. Why the fuck would I know? Just watch it. But the more important question, did your favorite caster get invited? No, I didn't. No. Nobody even reached out to me. I would have said yes. Maybe next time, though. Probably not next time. Like 5 times from now, though. I'm in there. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that was happening, because there are drops that are going to be affiliated with it. I think they're mostly League of Legends drops, but I mean, I play League of Legends too. I'm sure most of you do as well. So yeah, I just figured I'd let you know about this in case no one else did, because it was very easy to miss and just came out like super last minute. So before I get into these, something that I also wanted to mention, I know I'm doing a lot of things before I actually get into this weekend's Duels of Runeterra is in a couple of days, and since you can only get the cards through the event before you can actually purchase them, they're actually kind of unlikely to pop up this weekend, mostly because the last one, Give It All, is 180 points in. So, I mean, this is a pass that has 26 days on it. It goes up to 260. So to be at 180 by the weekend is a pretty tall task, especially given sort of the low amount of whatever you want to call this currency rewarded for the quests done. So it is a little unfortunate, because I do think that Out of the Way is actually pretty viable, which I'll get into in a second here, and it's at 140. So it's a question of, even if you have an Out of the Way deck that you think is very good, how much testing have you gotten on it, sort of given how far along the pass it is? But now I'm actually just going to get into the cards and talk about them in a vacuum. Mostly, ignoring the pass, ignoring this upcoming Duels of Runeterra on how they're going to play out. I just want to talk about how good these cards could be for the tournament format. I want to preface this by saying that yes, I understand that these were made just to add a little bit of flavor and fun to the game. These are not made to be meta-warping cards. They're not supposed to be the be-all, end-all of tournament high-tier competitive play, but I'm going to look at them through the lens of a tournament scope anyway and evaluate them as such, because they're tournament legal, and it would be kind of weird not to. So Go Hard has a little bit of confusing wording if you don't understand. Basically, once you play 3 Go Hards, the 4th one is a Pack Your Bags, and then you have to play 3 more Go Hards before you get a Pack Your Bags again. And it's just something that shuffles multiple copies of itself into your deck so that you can find more of them and get to the Pack Your Bags. This seems like a cool win con for Spooky Karma specifically, but Spooky Karma is the kind of control deck that just doesn't play win cons. Eventually, they're just going to sort of out-tempo you with the Karmas by constantly removing all your stuff. They don't need to play a win condition. They will just eventually win the game. And that's something that we've seen in card games for a long time. So I don't think this is a win con that they're going to necessarily just want to add, especially because they already have Vile Feast and Unspeakable Horror, and this one's slow. The mana efficiency doesn't really get a whole lot over those 2 cards, and because it is Shadow Isle, it is in direct competition with them. I don't think this card's going to see any play in any kind of tournament deck. Go Get It probably has the most potential, I want to say, just sort of baseline. I've seen a lot of people talk about the different cool combos that you can do with this, with Rekindler, Tiana Crown Guard, Windfarer Hatchling. I'm not sure if this fits organically into any kind of deck like that, or if it's something you have to build from the ground up, specifically to be a go-get-it deck, because, I mean, sure, it's great with Rekindler, but we're not seeing any Shadow Isle Ionia decks that play Rekindler outside of Spooky Karma, and if I just think that all these KDA cards should fit into Spooky Karma, that's really weird, and somebody at Riot needs to explain that fetish to me. And sure, it's cool with, Windfarer Hatchling, but I don't think Elusives necessarily wants a card like this. For Demacia, I mean, sure, you've got Tiana Crown Guard, but once again, I just don't think this is something that is organically fitting into any deck. And I think it's kind of a weird, really specific kind of thing to become a combo piece, especially because it is at fast speed. When we look at combo decks in the past, we're talking about Ezreal, we're talking about Lee Sin. I don't think we've really seen a spell-based one because it is a little bit easier to stop. We've seen Dawn and Dusk combo decks in the past, and those have had almost no tournament success. I say almost because we actually did see a Nivea Dawn and Dusk way back when in the first Korean Invitational, but I don't necessarily know that this fits into the same vein because the cards that you want to hit with it are a lot more expensive. You do have to go a little bit later in the game. Something like the Anivia Jutsu would at least get value immediately and start to clear off boards, and then had permanent value through the Anivia sticking around. This one is a little bit harder to say. I think it has a lot of potential, but I think it's going to come up just short every time that you try to make it happen. I'm not going to lie, there's actually quite a few unknown factors and out of the way for me, and because it is so far down the line in the event pass, I can't test those interactions. I want to know if this works on Spell Shield is sort of the biggest one, because it specifically rules out Barrier as something that it ignores, and I think that if you actually can get permanent spell shields with this, that's kind of insane. Some other permanent buffs that I believe are going to stick around include Tarek's Undying ability onto both him and his supported ally, and honestly I think Out of the Way probably has the most tournament potential because it adds so much to the Targon buff mechanics that they were aiming to beef up with the Bastion buffs, back in patch 1.11? 1.12? 112 sounds right. No, 112 was the rule. Was it 112? You get the idea. While it doesn't necessarily beef up any existing archetype outside of the Daybreak, I do think that this adds a lot of potential for Tarek to sort of catapult himself to the forefront of the meta. And even if you just put it in something like a Targon Allegiance deck that we're constantly seeing out of the Kid Cudi style, this does work really well with the Daybreak units, giving them permanent +1/+1s on your soldiers and +0/+4s on your shield bearers. Overall, I actually like this a lot, and it's not unheard of to take the first couple of turns off and then play a 5-mana spell on turn 3. So I do think that, running 3 copies of this, not the worst thing in the world. It's not great, but if you are in Targon, then you do have Spacey Sketcher as well, so you can go ahead and discard these additional copies later on. Overall, I think this one is probably my pick for having the most tournament potential, and I'm really excited to see how this one actually works out. We just probably won't get to see the experimentations with it for a little bit because it is at 140 points in the pass. I actually think it's really weird that Give It All is Piltover and Zon and Mind Meld is Bilgewater. It feels like they should be switched, but I think this is just a worse Mind Meld. And I think Mind Meld's really bad. This might be a better Mind Meld, but it's still just on the same level as Mind Meld. And it makes me kind of wonder because Mind Meld did come out at 8 mana and then they buffed it up to 7, and I'm kind of curious how much focus is going to be on sort of making these KDA cards viable, if we're going to see buffs for them in the future, or potentially nerfs. Probably buffs is what would have to come out of them, or if they're just going to be like those fun, non-competitive cards. I don't really know, but I don't think this one ever sees anything. This is just far and away the worst one. There's not even a consideration here, I think. Unless you're playing Piltover and Zon Elusives, and this is your sort of finisher rather than Windfarer Hatchling because you're not running Ionia for some reason, or you want to get it down a couple turns earlier because it's a spell, but that's probably the only time you'd ever see this, and I don't think that's necessarily something we're going to see anytime soon. I've seen a lot of talk about Feel the Rush kind of comparing it to War Mother's Call because, I mean, let's face it, they're both 12 mana Freljord spells. It'd be weird not to compare them. I do still think that War Mother's is going to be a lot better and a lot more consistent. Feel the Rush is kind of gimmicky. I mean, the champions that you're getting out of your hand and deck, unless you're getting elusives, you're not really ending the game on the spot. Overwhelm units maybe, you could get some Trundles or some big Tryndamirs or something along those lines, and the Tryndamirs would become 11/11s after they die because of the way that the buffs work, but overall I don't think Feel the Rush is better than War Mothers. I don't think it's going to be coming out in the same archetypes. I don't think you run this in Freljord Shadow Isle. Maybe this opens up the opportunity to go Freljord and something else and play a War Mothers-like deck, but I'm trying to think of what region I'm playing where I want this instead of War Mothers, and honestly, I'm just not thinking of one off the top of my head. And maybe that's a lack of imagination on my part, but I do think this actually does have the opportunity to open up War Mothers to other non-Shadow Isle sort of regions. I know a lot of people talk about Piltover and Zon specifically because getting 10/10 Teemos really isn't that bad because it's 10/10 elusives and you get 2 of them. It's really great. But overall, I don't see this sort of pushing out War Mothers in any capacity, and that is kind of where Freljord is committed at the moment, especially if you're running a 12-mana spell. So Feel the Rush is going to need a little bit of tuning on the side of War Mothers before this ever becomes a consideration. But I do think that it has potential. Anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. This has been my pretty short review of the KDA cards, but I feel like there's not a whole lot of depth to go into. They're pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Boulevard, and as always, good luck in your tournaments.